We interrupt this program to bring you breaking news from July of 2020. Netflix announcing the acquisition of several major black television series. This in response to global demands for more representation on screen. And I ask, what is more representation? When the most watched video of 2020 was a black man being lynched on Minneapolis asphalt, ain't this already a major black television series? And ain't we already seen this before in every genre? Ain't this already a horror? The way his neck could no longer hold his head above the weight of this wicked white world in action. The way knee turned to weapon, asphalt to casket, Facebook Live turned funeral comedy. The way the world then turns and tells us to be peaceful. What does it mean for more black folk to be more represented on screen when every week a new murder is broadcast live and in action for the whole world to see? See, there's nothing like a black person on screen that'll bring the whole world to its feet. Whether breathing or bloody, real or make-believe, they'll make us believe there is something magical about the way we disappear on screens, and we are tired of going live with more black death in 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. In the criminal injustice system, racially based offenses are considered especially holy. In the United States, the dedicated delinquents who execute these violent crimes are members of an evil squad known as the police department. These are their stories. Bad boys, yo. The bad boys are always doing the murders around here, then calling themselves the heroes. Always calling for backup, scared our holy black bodies gonna get back up. Then tell our family who watched the murder in front of their eyes to back up as the world tell us to pray to God. But nowadays, it seems like even heaven's voicemail is backed up. How long does a black body lie in the sweltering sun before someone calls in the ambulance? In 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. Find out next time on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Except when black suns set in the middle of the street. The earth then gathers around his name, call this an orbit or a rally. His mother's screams are swallowed by the black holes in his body as gravity brings her to the ground. The moon asks, how long? Until the next sun sets in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Find out next time on How to Get Away with Murder. Yo, how to get away with murder. It's like going to trial for the bullets that did not kill Breonna Taylor. It's like Joe Biden being called an uncle like he ain't helped lock all hours up. It's like the murdered being put on trial while the murderer conducts the investigation. It's like America in 5, 4, 3, 2. Well, that's all the fun for tonight, folks. Remember, if you find yourself black and on screen, make it Oscar-worthy. Or they'll murder you, Oscar Grant. And either way, the whole world will be watching live. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. At 8 years old, I memorized the first page of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, and eager to show off my newfound oratorical skills, I went to my mama, a single mother of 2 in Fort Worth, Texas, just needing a moment to tend to the house, and she looks at me and smiles and says, Trayvon, my middle name, why don't you come back when you've learned the whole thing? And I did. This would set in motion a chain of events that would situate my life at the intersection of storytelling and social transformation. At 13, I became a preacher, leaned even more heavily into the legacy of Dr. King, and I told people about the good news of the Lord and the good news of Jesus, all while struggling to believe that the God I was preaching about could actually love me. I was 14 when Trayvon Martin was murdered. And now, everywhere I went, I could no longer escape the sound of my mother's voice echoing in the mouths of so many strangers. Trayvon, Trayvon, Trayvon. Trayvon's murder made me interrogate the illusions I was raised to believe in and demanded that I look at the world differently. I began writing poetry as a way to unpack it all. And at 18, by the time I was going to college, I knew that I had to go to an HBCU. I chose to go to the illustrious Howard University, and notably, the only school that didn't give me a scholarship. That didn't matter much to me now because I, got accepted into the theater program where I would train and study to be an actor. I lasted 2 weeks. I couldn't imagine working so hard for something and still graduating into an industry of so much uncertainty. And I didn't want people to assume I was gay. I came out later that year anyway, so kind of a moot point, different speech, don't have a lot of time. I was told that I could continue to sing, that I could play the piano, but I could no longer preach the word of God. And at 18, I stopped. This personal reckoning was happening at the same time as America was going under a reckoning of her own. This was the year Donald Trump would become president for the first time. And after inauguration, I found myself swept up into a group of young organizers who together formed what we called HU Resist, a coalition of young students who were incredibly determined to hold Howard University accountable to its mission and to its responsibility to the larger black freedom struggle. We held a number of direct actions and protests and teach-ins and raised mutual aid. We began to model for the university what community actually looks like. I think about that a lot now when we see the young students of today continuing in that tradition because they believe in the words of Dr. King that we are all caught up in a web of mutuality tied to a single garment of destiny. At the end of my freshman year at Howard, I was rushed from my dorm room to the Washington MedStar Hospital Center for Suicidal Ideation and Extreme Depression. I no longer wanted to live. The pressures of all the failed conversion therapies, the prayers praying the gay away, the loss of family and friends, being targeted on campus because of my student movement organizing work, all caught up to me. I spent 4 days in the hospital, and upon discharge, I went back to Texas to continue psychiatric care there, and to my luck, Howard University, instead of withdrawing me, failed me. They implied that I was using a medical emergency to excuse my own poor academic performance. I left there with a 1.3 GPA and a heart broken from the loss of my first love, Howard University. At 20, I transferred to Texas Southern University. I joined the debate team. I became involved with student government. And for a moment, it seemed like things might actually get better. And then I received a call that my cousin, a teenage boy in Fort Worth, Texas, died by suicide. Of course, I felt survivor's remorse. I felt I should have been even more vocal and even more open. To my surprise, a few days later, I was asked to preach his funeral. And like Dr. King, so many times before I speak, I love to get centered by listening to gospel music, old meter hymns and Negro spirituals and like Mahalia Jackson type music. Still away, still away, still away home. I ain't got long to stay here. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor, joins the millions before him. The ground shakes, the streets cry, the sun smiles as the sky opens to receive him. 2 days later, it rains. The clouds are weeping, afraid that one day there will be no more room for us there. Too many, they say. Too soon. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor, and I wonder if God actually had time to finish his mansion. Or did he just get an apartment instead? A group home for black boys who arrived too soon, mansion still under construction. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor in Aspen. If I'm honest, days like this make it hard to call on Jesus. It seemed like just the other day they called him King of Kings. Yesterday they called him Emmett Till. Today they call him George Floyd. Tomorrow they'll just insert my name. It seems like they just keep crucifying him, always with the crowd watching, always innocent, always black. It seems like black boys are always dying, but we still ain't dead. Today another black boy becomes an ancestor, and I ask America, how many more bullets must our bloody black bodies swallow before they call this genocide? Because this is genocide. No matter how real the gun looked, no matter how suspicious he wasn't, this is still an act of war. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor, and then white folks are still sitting sipping on Starbucks like his blood ain't sweet enough. Them preachers still talking about some heaven like it matters now. Them teachers still talking about Lincoln freeing slaves like they don't see the chains on our wrists. Them mothers still trying to prepare them black sons on how not to be killed while dying anyway today. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor. And there is no mention of the black girl, dead, floating in a river of silence, how no one says her name. But her bones look so familiar. We've seen them before. We just don't remember where or when. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor, and tomorrow they will tell us to be safe. Like this black affords us this luxury. Like Philando wasn't killed with his seatbelt on, Mike Brown with his hands up, Tamir playing with the toy, Eric pleading for his life. They will say, be safe. They mean to say, escape from your skin if you can, black boy, run, transform into anything other than yourself. It is the only way you will survive, and don't you want to survive, black boy? Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor, and I'm afraid tomorrow the world will forget to mourn his death. I'm afraid he won't even have the privilege of being remembered. So why you want to fly, black boy? You ain't never gonna fly. Today, another black boy becomes an ancestor before he becomes an adult. And ain't that America's favorite act? And so I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. What I did know at 8 years old is that perhaps the most iconic part of Dr. King's speech was not planned at all. The story goes that Mahalia Jackson, powerhouse and longtime friend of Dr. King, who he often called to sing songs to ground him, saw that in the middle of the speech the people were not really responding. And so she does what any artist would do. She leans in. She says, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And he begins to testify and deliver one of the most famous speeches of all time. And I know because we're in a room full of critical thinkers, there's some person outside there thinking, wondering to themselves, okay, what happened next? We went to 8, 13, 14, 20. What happened to you next? And we don't have time to go into all of that, but I will say that on the cusp of 27, in a matter of a couple of days, I am here. I am here to share the story. And yes, even though I face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. What dream is daring you to tell the world about it? What story will you make visible that without you might never be seen? Because when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of that old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I am free at last.